So, some people know me, some people don't. My name is Ed Beatty. I taught at Winnicott High School for 36 years. I've lived in town here, seems like forever. But I'm not a move-in, as you would say. But my family grew up and actually got off the boat in Newbury, Massachusetts in 1635. And I'll refer back to that at some point. It's interesting how the families are very close. So I taught history at Winnicott High School, and now I'm in the lucky position of being a selectman in town here and being on the Tricentennial committee. And thought this is probably the best place to be because everybody can meet me and tell me what's wrong with their road or whatever. So okay, good. So we have everybody should have a green sheet, and on that sheet is a map, and the map is not easy to follow, but old maps of Hampton Falls are interesting because there's a lot more going on in this town in the 18th century than a lot of people would realize. So I'm going to try to give you some relatively easy to find, not hard to acknowledge historical events that have occurred here, or people that have been here, or places where things have happened that you can find in Brown's history of Hampton Falls or in other subsequent books that are out there. So my sources are those kinds of things that are relatively easy to get to. Of course, with every town, there's a lot of stuff that we can't necessarily prove, but we can come close. We have enough people talking about it, more than likely anecdotally it's probably true. So we've got 15 stops to go through today, and on those 15 stops I'll try to give you a brief run through of why this is important or why it has had a significance in our town's history of 300 years. In itself, Hampton Falls is older than Newburyport, Mass. A lot of people don't realize that Newbury, Mass is the old town, and Newburyport is 1724. So it is also a place where a significant amount of industry took place long before there was industry in the Merrimack Valley and down the Merrimack River through. So we have a rich history, and I hope to share a few things with that. I ran one thing by a surviving member of the Brown family, Shelley Parrish Brown, who, about her great-grandfather, Warren Brown, who wrote the first 2 volumes of history. We have the 3rd volume. It's the sale. It's in the town hall. Here it is. It's produced by a writer who, this is his first book. And we hired him out, and it's a wonderful book. I was really nervous about it because I was doing editing and watching it and trying to make sure that things got printed on time, and you don't have any control over a lot of this stuff now. So it was great. We got it in. This is $40. So to get the Mega Millions, you've already lost it. Put 2 20s down and grab one. You can get them in the town hall. They'll be available during the week at all events. They'll be available long after it's over. Think about Christmas. People that have lived in Hampton Falls, people that have had some association with the town. So that's the book, and it's beautifully done. And I couldn't put it back down, and I kept looking at it, and knowing that there isn't a lot of stuff in here for me to talk to you today about. So I had to go back and read Warren's version of things. So this is basically from 1917 to 2020. So,
did you find your name in it?
What's that?
Did you find your name in it?
I didn't even really look for my name. I'm not that important, so anyway. So here we go. We're going to go up here, and we're going to go past the town hall, which is the only town hall we've ever had. We had a meeting house in a parish, okay, and stuff was stored there. That later became the town hall just after the Civil War, and the town hall has had additions put onto it since then. Of course, some air conditioning and the like to make it a functional 21st century building and a place. But Hampton Falls in itself, as a town, is not dramatically bigger than it was here in the 18th century. There were hundreds of people who worked in town who didn't live here. In fact, people lived in Hampton came here to work. people who created Apple Press. They bought that from Norfolk. They have hence worked all this land on both sides of the road, and they made, if you will, they made Walter Farmer as well smart, and he who laughs greatest about whether or not you could grow apples here and make it as a farm here. There were originally 5 farms in Hampton Falls, and the five farms in Hampton Falls all had a piece of the marsh as well, because that was the most important land in town. So people would ridicule anybody who was upland, because you had to clear a lot of trees, you had to get a lot of stone off the property. It made it very difficult, like New England farmers feel today. It's very salt hay. Salt marsh hay is worth. You can only get it between Providence, Rhode Island, and Portland, Maine, and the Great Marsh. Yeah, well, no. So we're going to take it right up here. This is Sanborn Corners here, and this particular road is called Brown Road, and it's called Brown Road, I think, primarily because that's who lived on it all the way up and down it. But the most important house on it was Warren Brown's house, who at one point, and we're going to get down to it here, it'll be on your left. Warren Brown is probably the most significant inhabitant of Hampton Falls, not to be known, if you will, nationally, but certainly to be known as a local character. He did everything. He was a farmer, he was an entrepreneur, a businessman, a state rep. He invented things. He built, his wife, Gertrude, built this house, which will be down here on the left, called Sunnyside. The exact duplicate of that house is in the Historical Society, and you'll be able to see that if you want to go to the Historical Society. It's a scale model of. It's a doll's house of this particular house, as it was. Now, since then, this house has been obviously changed a great deal. I'm trying to be exactly accurate without saying any more than that. And most of what you read here on the signs that are in front of it, that I noticed last night when I went through the tour, is not terribly accurate. So I wouldn't pay much attention or worry about any of it. So this has been this house is a true Victorian, massive. At one time, I think there were 38 people working here. And they had gardens that went all the way into the back, which is now a development, if you will. And subject to the present owner's belief, Warren Brown was never governor of New Hampshire. It was never anything beyond state rep. And no matter what your license plate says, it doesn't make it so. And so this is Brown Road, and you can see the size of that house in the 19th century, where there were a lot of big farms, and they had lots of land, and they needed lots of workers, large families. You often see when you read Brown's history that families had 8 or 9 children. They carried on, and as farms got bigger, the barns got bigger, the amount of land they consumed was larger, and they were market farms, trying to do whatever they could to sell what they had. On the left-hand side here, you see this barn that's facing you. That's Marston's Dairy. Marston's Dairy was one of the last ones to go out around here. It was really sad. There were, I think I counted at one point in time, 7 dairies in Hampton Falls. And so we had a lot of dairy cows, and the Marston family had one of the last working farms here. I have to tell you, H.B. Hood probably ruined the dairy industry because they made it corporate. So they bought out all this stuff and made it difficult. And this is the bachelor section, and they had another working farm, dairy farm here, and they owned all kinds of land. This land on this side as well, where there's a huge pond now, because the beavers have been busy. And they as well were one of the working class. This house here, which is the oldest house in Hampton Falls, it's a 17th century house. It says 1701. I found 1696 in my research, but that's where you find disputes about. That's why they always say circa, because nobody really knows for sure. This house was moved here in 1969, so it came from Seabrook, and it is fully restored. It's a beautiful house. It has all the period features of a house built in that time. Very simplified, as you can see. Warren Brown's house versus this house. Whole different structure about what you need and what you need to kind of. We're still going forward. Going right back out to the school. Okay. Quaker. Quaker. No, it wasn't the Shakers. They had a problem with kids, so they didn't have any. So that's why they left. Well, it wasn't Steeple. It was a Quaker family and a meeting house of some sort. They moved in here. You used to be able to move houses relatively easy because there weren't any telephone lines. Warren Brown's house was the first to have electricity. So this is Governor Weir's house to your left. I'm sure you've seen it a million times. He was the first governor during colonial time. And he also housed a lot of famous people. So Washington visited there. Whittier visited there. Whittier was kind of all over the place here. When we come back up, we're going to stop just on the side up here when we come back. And I'll talk about Elmfield and Wells character. The Common and, if you will, Governor Weir's house and all that material here really kind of got developed at the same time as the Revolution. Because the Revolution gave us a semblance of order. Okay, you need to get together in militia. You need to get organized. You need to get the British the hell out of here. So much so that Paul Revere came right up this road on his way to the safety committee in Portsmouth, where he met with them secretly. So we've had some pretty famous characters on the Common, where the monument is. Actually, was a thing called Rockingham Academy. Rockingham Academy was one of the schools. There were 4 schools in Hampton Falls, and we're going to end on the East School, which has been restored, and it's behind the present library on the end of the trip here today. But Rockingham Academy burned in the 1877 fire, I think. And at one point in time, it was turned into a shoe factory. So they made shoes here, basically. Nobody really kind of ever considered it. So, and then the Common came along as they restored the and representation of Governor Weir and, if you will, the Civil War cannons and the like. This is Depot Road, one of the more famous places, because this is, if you will, the landing part of it. And if you go up to Hampton, which we were part of originally, there's Landing Road, which ends at Winnicunnet's property. Hampton was actually called Winnicunnet at the time. And beautiful place in the pines is what it means in Indian lore. And so the name of the high school made sense. Also Landing Road, which comes all the way into the marsh, is where the first settlers landed there in 1638. And so we had our own landing, and I would tell you that the boundary disputes about landing and Depot Road haven't changed in 100 years, because people still don't know where the line is, where the railroad is, where the new walkway, greenery, and trails is going to go. Whether or not there's going to be a trail ahead here or not. But we'll take just a minute. I'm just checking on my time here to make sure that I can get to everything I'm supposed to get to today. Yeah. We're good. So one of the things about the landing is that all the farmers, there were 5 original farms in Hampton Falls. Those people all had a section of the marsh. and there was sectioned off. All these lines you see in the marsh are not devised to create the land division. Those were put in there to restore the marsh, because you need water flow back and forth at high and low tide. So those were all done. A lot of that stuff was done in the 30s when they put people to work and to keep people busy. So you have here, this is obviously titled, and you have here a place where a lot of action took place. There was a depot here. There was a railroad station. The railroad ran straight through here into Hampton. This was a major stop. It was the most important stop in all of New Hampshire in the 18th century. Because on this stop, folks, all of the goods and services that went either way came in. So at high tide, they could get in off the ocean. And at low tide, obviously, they can distribute through the train. And so trains obviously are a 19th century phenomenon, but it was horse and buggy and wagon and oxen and the like. If you go into the museum, I'm not going to talk a lot about the marsh, because you should go to the museum and see what they've done, and they've got a salt marsh hay section. There are 3 major sections in the museum. One is about John Starbush, the greatest American pewterer anywhere in this part of the country, and where he was on Drinkwater Road. And one of the sections is salt marsh haying, the other is about Warren Brown. So you can pick up all kinds of more interesting facts that I can give you, quite frankly, without having to read just Brown's history of Hampton Falls and giving all the little delicate things. But this is where it happened. There was a lot of people. There were a lot of people working here. There was activity almost daily and nightly. People would come in from Hampton and work here and go back home. People worked in the marsh, and so we came through town on the common, and the town budget still pays for the control of, if you will, and the cleaning and repairing of the clock that's in the steeple of the church. And that church is iconic in New England. It looks like everybody. Somebody said, "This is New England," right? That's what you take a picture of. The next time you get up that way, you look at the hands on the east side. They're larger than the hands on the other 3 sides, because people in the marsh would have to know what the tidal zone was, and they don't want to get caught out here at king tide. So they would have an ability to see the time of the day and what was going on and deal with that. They also had the oxen down here, and the horses that were used to take a lot of salt marsh hay out. They had big clogs put on them so they wouldn't sink in. So when you see salt marsh tractors today, they let all the air out of their tires so that they can go along, and they're four-wheel drive, of course. I used to say that oxen are 8-wheel drive, because they could pull anything through the marsh. And so they would be down here working the fields and getting that stuff. And salt marsh hay always brought, it still brings a premium. It's used on roadsides for keeping bales of hay, and when people doing construction, they buy salt marsh hay and stake it, because that's the value of it. It holds back that water and silt, the silt work. So salt marsh hay. This is part of this whole area here, and I have paintings from this area here that are 100 years old. I collect salt marsh hay paintings, so I have paintings of this whole area here, and you can find it in postcards at the time. There were people were enthused and enthralled with salt marsh because it was their living. It was important to them. So over here you can see what used to be the longest wooden bridge in the world, but it doesn't exist anymore because we've come from that. But that's the bridge between Seabrook and Hampton. I'm going to tell you a story that even
Seabrook and Salt.
no, Seabrook and Hampton. Seabrook and Hampton. Yeah. This is Hampton to our left, and Hampton Beach. Okay, and Seabrook Beach is just actually Hampton kind of goes down into Seabrook Beach. A lot of people are aware that when you cross the inlet there, you're still in Hampton. There's a section over there. So that bridge, first off, it was everybody said the bridge would not hold anything. It's too long, wooden, going to crash, and all the if they had internet, then it would have been more more historical than it is now. But, that was the talk around town, and it was kind of funny. But the lumber for that came from Hampton Falls. It came down this road, got loaded on barges here, and went out. And interesting, because Warren Brown was so sharp, he was such a sharp character, he ran the ceremonies of the opening, and the governor came down, they opened the bridge, it's called Long Bridge, and Warren Brown, there's a boundary rock out there that separates the inlet between what is today modern day Seabrook on one end and Hampton on the other, and it comes to a point, but in between that is the only piece of land, if you will, the only piece of land that touches actually the Atlantic Ocean. That's Hampton Falls. So if you look at a map and you see all the way down at the end, is Hampton Falls a seacoast town? Yes. Does it touch the seacoast? Does it touch the sea? Yes, it does. So Warren Brown ran the ceremony. He ran it right above Boundary Rock, and so I found this in some obscure writing. It was great, and he did it, and he did it. He's such a character. He did it, and so after that, when they printed up stories about the longest wooden bridge in the history of the world, the ceremonies took place in Hampton Falls. so he was already trying to make Hampton Falls bigger than it was, and it was already pretty big. So there's been a lot of action down here, and there's been a lot of interest in the depot during COVID. Of course, it became more interesting for people to get away and get out and so forth. So it's still a very attractive place, and this is the last section that they haven't built on the rails to trails. So they're in the process of doing that. So we're in the middle of that right now. So it's a very interesting place, and we've got greenhead, which is nice. So it's time to leave you once the greenhead bites. For salt marsh hay to work, it has to have both be totally covered at high tide and totally uncovered at low tide. So, yes, that was large there too. All these roads that were built prevented the kind of inlet that we need. So now repairing salt marsh is about opening up waterways to get in here, like this here. You can see the greenhead boxes, but you want that water right there. That creates what you want. I see a hand.
Yeah. The depot was moved up the street just a little bit.
That's correct.
On the right hand side.
It's disassembled in the tippets for that. Some of them were used in town here in the granite blocks that came from the original depot here. Were taken, and they're at the town shed. They've been used to create an outdoor amphitheater and classroom at the school, and they've been used at different places when we repaired bridges in town here. So they were all there, and they were all oxened out when it was taken down. Yeah, you're right. It was moved.
Right up here.
Yes.
No, the house is still there.
Well, there's nothing left of it. So down here to the left, there were two major buildings that were front.
Yeah.
One was called Elmfield, where Whittier spent most of his time in the summertime. Whittier was born. Whittier was born in Haverhill, Massachusetts, although several other towns claim that Whittier lived there and so forth. So you can find almost every Amesbury, and stuff. But Hampton Falls is where he died. So he died here. I think it's 1892. He lived at a place called Elmfield, which was disassembled in my lifetime, taken to Connecticut and reestablished. It was a sad thing to see go. It would never happen today, but people would just be outraged. Beside Elmfield, so that's approximately where Courier Leather is. And beside that, coming this way, was the Wells Tavern, one of the great establishments in town. I actually have the fire buckets and Hannah Wells's, I collect Hampton Falls memorabilia, so Hannah Wells's Sampler. Hannah Wells Sampler. She was the first woman entrepreneur in this whole area. She ran a tavern, which is not an easy job. And Whittier took all of his meals there. So, we're going to go to the right. And here, and we're going to go by in just a moment. There's a place called Dodge Pond, and I want to just take a minute to talk to you about Nathaniel Dodge. Nathaniel Dodge came to town here. His father was involved in industrial kinds of things, and he came to town, and he noticed that there was something you could do down the way here. So you can look at a map and it'll say Whittier Pond, and it'll say Dodge Pond, and they're both right. So there's the dispute about whose it was. But Dodge was here. Dodge was here before Whittier.
Yes, but
Whittier became famous as a result of it.
yeah, but Dodge didn't create the pond.
No, he did not. He created the falls. So there are 3 falls, and you won't see them from the road, but you can. There are new owners of the Governor Powell estate, so I don't know what the access will be to going there. But interestingly enough, Dodge Pond here is a direct result of the falls being created because it was a dumping zone from all the water that was used to run all the machinery that was in town. There was a fulling mill, there was a grinding mill, a shingle factory. Down at the depot there was a brick factory, of which the brick building that's right on the corner here, those bricks came from the brick factory made in Hampton Falls. And there were a lot of workers working there. Tried to get a mason today. I had a fire in my house, and it's taken me 18 months to get a mason to put a chimney in, so I don't know where that's going to go. But the reality is that we're in a different world today, and Dodge Pond was created by slowing down the water here and speeding it up over the top of the falls and getting the power driven that you could. So they did a lot, in the fulling mill, they did a lot of work with sheep here. So they were pounding out all the wool, getting all the impurities out of it. And that made it better for the textile industry that was just beginning. This is before automation. This is before, we get to the, if you will, the great mills along the Merrimack River. This is the beginning of, this is 18th century mill. And a lot of people came here to work, and there were 3 falls created, and Nathaniel Dodge had people all over the town distribute rocks from all over town here to build those falls. And there was plenty of rock.
Is this not the Dodge.com that could be any solutions?
Not the original.
Not the original.
The original is I'll show you when you're down. Oh, thank God. But a relative, I'm sure. I mean, the Dodgers have been here since into the 20th century. So that's how long this has been going. No, different. That's a common name, though, in this area. Okay, so if you're looking for common names, Brown's not uncommon. If you go across the border into Seabrook, Eaton, Dow, Brown are common. They're common. So there are a lot of the same families. Interesting enough, those same families, the Moultons, Moulton Silver and Newburyport, all those things, they all came here. Jonathan Moulton came here. He actually lived, the Jonathan Moulton house is right up here in Hampton. That was burned, but the recreation of it is sitting there, the big yellow place. So, those were all people that came across the line. Remember now, New Hampshire was separate. Okay, it's one of the 13 colonies. All right, so it's separate. But we were part of a whole consortium of towns that included towns in Massachusetts and Seabrook. So Hampton Falls, that's why they tried to figure out where the boundary was going to be. They got together, and they did it reasonably well. They figured out where things should be. They used the Merrimack. They used in Seabrook. They met and decided this would be Seabrook, Hampton Falls, be Hampton. So that's how it got divided up. Hampton Falls was the most burgeoning. It was the largest industrial area east of New York City. So it was
My
important.
grandfather
You don't get
started
Washington, Revere,
up here.
Monroe, Lafayette. You don't
BT
get those
took it
people
over.
strolling through town because there's nothing here. Okay, they
Oh,
came
yeah.
here. They came here because there was a lot going on here.
Judson, he was
Lafayette,
right.
of course, Lafayette
Oh, really?
Road was named after him. He came back in 1824, and since that time, that was the first road, what they would call Route 1 now, was the first road in America, and this is the first section of the first road that was created and named after Lafayette for all the addresses now because of his expertise during the Revolution with Washington. No, because it becomes Newbury Road. It crosses into something else, and I don't know where that is. The Newburyport Turnpike obviously changed everything.
The primary road.
That's it. Yeah, that's the post road, what they call the post road. Yeah, and there's a post road in Boston, which is what's that Route 9, I think it is. That goes out to the western suburbs, and that's a post road. You see post roads in lots of towns, right? So, and that's because they created those roads so that people could get to where the areas were working, where people were doing things. And Washington probably is a barn that's been restored here. I had a student one time that did the research on this and told me that he thinks pretty much that barn, which is Punky Merrill's barn, by the way, for those that are old enough to know Punky Merrill. He ran the one store, the post office, chickens on the bread, a Jenny sign out front. I'm trying to think what else. Crazy old New Hampshire stuff, which you see disappearing unless you get up north. It's kind of all gone in this area, but he had a farm here. He had sheep. Sheep were very important in Hampton Falls. Now it's all horses. Even though we ran the first horse show in all of America. So, interestingly enough, people appreciated horses. My Irish background comes from Ballinasloe, which is one of the most important horse shows in all of Europe, and people brought their horses in from all over Europe to go to Ireland to the horse show. So it's kind of interesting that I live in town here, and it was really well known because of the first horse show, and then they came back here and they ran a horse show for a while, and we lost it, which is too bad because I thought it was a good thing for our town. But sheep, there's no money in sheep. I've got 9 sheep. There's no money in sheep. Okay, but it does give you balance. So it's changed dramatically. Whenever we're driving around with my wife, she'll often say, "Oh yeah, Andy Giachides, he had sheep. Yeah, they had sheep." And I think there are 2 people left in town that have sheep because it's just those days are gone. They're gone. But that was a big between Saltmarsh haying and the fulling of all that work and the grinding and the subsequent mills that came about as a result of that. So Dodge had 5 mills here, and he did a lot of work himself. There's a picture in Brown's history of him on a boat creating the archways so that the water would go through. So it's pretty in depth for 18th century industrial activity. So we'll go up here and on my list here, I wish we could stop, but it's just not a very convenient place to stop. So the falls, you'll see the most. This is the picture you see, but there are 2 more behind it. Okay, all right. You get to travel up in there, you can see it. So that's what everybody takes pictures of, and we did too. So, there's a little church here. You can't see it. It used to be an ice house. And in 1932, this is Governor Powell's place right here. This is the original Dodge property, and this used to be one of the mills right here. Okay, and it was turned into a residence. Okay, and then it was skipped through, and you can see. So I can always tell how bad a drought it is. See, here's 1, 2, and there's a 3rd one in the back. So those were all created then. This was part of the original material as well. But there's a church that was created. It's the smallest Episcopal church in the world, and in 1932, and they had people from the church come down and consecrate the ground, it, they had Irish linen, lace, high quality items brought in from all over the world to celebrate it. And it was a nice house. So, on the right up here, when we get past the sign, which this is what technology and change brings to you. Jonathan tells me we're not. So over on the right, and we're going to go by it in just a moment, but I'll take just a minute to talk about it. Yeah, and if you can just here just for a second, because Jonathan knows you're coming. So this is Indian Rock Farm, folks. Indian Rock Farm used to be in a different spot because of Route 95. So Jonathan Bone owns both that corner and this corner and the corner on Star Road and that property there. And this is all one farm, and when they put in Route 95, they moved the house. But it's a famous place. They changed the chimney. They used to have a single chimney. It's an 18th century home, and they put double chimneys in. And the old road used to go right here to the right where you see the line. So that's when they changed the bridge. So Indian Rock Farm was famous because in 1706, the owner of the property at that point in time came in and was actually spending time going to Hampton to go to church. He came back and was intercepted by some Indians and killed. And it happened behind Jonathan's barn. There's a huge rock, and ever since that time, in 1706, it's been named Indian Rock Farm. It was really the one and only that I could find Indian scenario that has taken place here in town that's been written about. In my house, we don't even have Indian shutters. Right? So, my house is built in 1753. You find older homes that have Indian shutters where you can shut from the interior and protect yourself from attack. We have a secret room behind the bookcase, but we don't have. I'm not sure what that was for. Maybe hiding alcohol during the Great Depression. But the point is, these houses were you could move a house. So Jonathan Bone, his dad was a longtime resident here. Quite a character. He used to run the auctions on Village Green Fair. I remember him hollering and screaming and doing all kinds of things. An interesting character. So the original piece of property goes all the way back to where the falls are created, and he has both sides of 95, but the farms are split because people want to wait in traffic to go to Maine. So every Thursday afternoon and Friday afternoon. So yeah, Jonathan Bone is the head of the cemetery trustees lives there. Yep. And his dad, he grew up here. He went out to California to come back. Yeah. So this is kind of like, as far as Indian lore, there isn't much in town, but this is the one place where there is. Good. How are we doing time-wise? Oh, perfect. Imagine that? No, I'm okay. So, it was part of Hampton Falls. Yeah, part of what is Kensington today, that's part of the division of the line. Kensington is 10 years later. I'll have to look it up. I'm not sure, but I think, yeah, the guy who did a lot of that surveying is the guy that built my house in 1720. This is called Great Hill. Sometimes on your map it's spelled. It wasn't misspelled by me, folks. Sometimes it's spelled in the old-fashioned Grate, Great Hill.
Slide it down. Yeah. Right. I mean, I haven't seen any.
Well, we went to Mary Marshall's house. And
20th century.
my mother was friends with her, so we went to dinner every day for 4 days. It was yeah, I'm a Tanner, but she's the oldest. I'm the middle.
We're gonna go right back.
And you are?
Well, you know, I used to
So,
know what was going
folks,
on
next
because my friend
Saturday,
Betty
with the
Merrill-
Clydesdales, they're
Yep,
gonna be
it's
unloaded over
her
here. They're gonna
granddaughter,
come down
my
tomorrow.
daughter-in-law's grandmother.
Okay, so
That lives right
So
up here.
she would
this will
tell
be
me
an
what was
area, you
going
don't wanna see
on
them.
and
You
how
don't wanna be in
they
this
wanted
area
to
for about 2 hours.
father not live in the house alone. So I would hear about this. Why are you here?
Well, there are several buildings in town that were schools at one point in time. Building right here with a bell in front of it, a school bell in front of it, or a farm bell that they converted over to a school bell. So the East School is great. You want to check in there sometime and just see how things were, and you want to take any little ones you can because you can tell them you're lucky. Because a lot of people forget exactly how things really were in school, and I can remember just in my lifetime. I spent my life in schools, but I can remember trying to bring in a new superintendent of schools here in the Hamptons, and I said to him, "What's the worst decision you ever made?" He goes, "Closing a school," because people have their heart. It's when you're little and you get totally impressed by all those things, and they come at you so fast. So here's the East School. It's been meticulously restored. You definitely want to stop in there sometime. Maybe not this week, but whenever you want. If you're looking for something to do.
It'll be open Saturday.
It-
Hunter's going to man it Saturday. This is coming Saturday. So
Okay,
if
there
you're
you
going
go.
to see
So
the
it's-
Clydesdales, go there first.
There we go. You heard it here.
My son.
So anyway, that's the East School, and you know, we've got some nice public buildings here that, in my mind, from what I try to do, I think they should be well maintained. They represent your town. They represent exactly who you are as a society, and they give you a good idea about who lives there and what's going on.
Where did you say go see the
So,
buses first?
We go back now, and any questions you all have that I can answer.
Later. This will be open before the horses, so you could go right there to the schoolhouse and see all the old. Yeah.
Anywhere along the route's good.
Yeah, but
We try to
it's
make it
open
long
like
enough so
yeah,
that,
horses. You can go around.
yeah, because
Yeah.
for multiple reasons, not only exactly what could be.
Yeah, we're good.
The granddaughter of Harold and Dawn.
I'm Harold's daughter.
You're the daughter.
Yeah. I'm the older
So-
sister.
I wish I was in the tree business, actually.
You're the.
I'm the oldest.
Plenty of work. Plenty of work.
Three of you.
Yeah.
So when you get off today, the building is open.
You never know.
They're open today, so
Well,
you can go in. I
Go
see
by the
Deb's there,
house.
Wendy's there, my wife's there, so we got a full force in.
Grew up on the corner.
That's like you're still doing it. Someone else is doing it. It's one heck of a job to do.
Living in it.
That I know. Well, I think she's gone to flowers. Which is not any easier, quite frankly.
Yeah, my brother Forrest.
Okay. Now we're all connected here. Yeah.
See, we were really big.
Yes.
Well, growing up.
Hey, thank you for coming and enjoy the week. There's a lot of great stuff going on. Enjoy the week.